Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. It is the hour, the early hour of 8 a.m. I guess we can get started with introductions. Welcome to the Energy Code Tag, the second Energy Code Tag. It's scheduled to go from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. I think it is likely that we will extend. We will have to extend this. Ideally, we keep it to the tag to just today. The goal is if we can get it all done today, then it can go in front of the MVE and SBCC and the whole council next week, and then it can be out for public comment and code proposals after that. If we don't get it done today, or if we don't get it done by the MVE committee next Thursday and the council meeting on Friday, then it won't go out for a month after that, because that's when the next council meeting is. So hopefully we can get it all done the next 3+ hours. To that end, let's be very cognizant of time as we come at things. We want to get it right. We also don't need to be absolutely correct about everything, because there will be a public comment period where we can reconcile any issues with it. So Krista, should we do introductions?
Certainly. Mike Fowler.
Oh, good morning. I'm Mike Fowler, an architect at Methuen. I am here representing AIA Washington Council on behalf of the 3,000 architects across the state.
Scott Henderson. Mike McGivern.
Morning, Mike McGivern, City of Kirkland, Combination Electrical Building Inspector representing the Washington Association of Building Officials.
Chris Holliday. Wade Craig.
Wade Craig, Bob's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Dwayne Johnlin.
Dwayne Johnlin, City of Seattle.
Lisa Rosenow.
Lisa Rosenow, Evergreen Technology Consulting. We do tech support for the commercial provisions of the Energy Code.
Henry Odom. Eric Bedell. Martin Connor. David Reddy.
This is David Reddy with O'Brien 360, representing energy modelers on the tag.
Michael Baranek.
Yes, hello, this is Mike Baranek with Hargis Engineers. I am also representing Energy Modelers as a alternate.
Gary Heikkinen.
Morning, Gary Heikkinen, representing Gas Utilities.
Amy Willis.
Morning, everyone. Amy Wheelis, Northwest Energy Coalition, representing the public.
Poppy Storm.
Yes, Poppy Storm, 2050 Institute. I'm the alternate for the public representative.
CJ Brockway.
CJ Brockway, Spark Lab, representing the interest of lighting design.
Andrew Poltorek.
Good morning, I'm Andrew Poltorek with Puget Sound Energy, alternate voting member in the interest of lighting designers.
Sean Vig.
Good morning, Sean Vig with Mitsubishi Electric, representing manufacturers.
Alan Montpelier. Elizabeth Joyce.
Elizabeth Joyce, Arup, mechanical engineer.
Eric Olnon. Gavin Tenold.
Gavin Tenold here, representing Washington Solar Energy Industries.
John Lang.
John Lang, alternate representing Washington Solar Energy Industries.
Patrick Hayes.
Patrick Hayes, energy consultant, envelope specialist, representing small business.
Luke Howard.
Good morning, Luke Howard, Washington State Department of Commerce.
And Bill Kraus.
Is there a quorum?
We have a quorum.
Yay. Thanks everybody for getting up early, getting your coffee and being here. Just a couple of notes before we go. When you have something to say, please raise your hand using the virtual raise hand feature, which is found under the reactions. And there are a bunch of emoticons there, like clapping and party time, but there's also raise hand, which will then put your hand up, and it'll also move you to the upper left of my screen, so I'll see that your hand is in fact up. And then when you're done asking a question or making a comment, please lower your hand so that I don't call on you again. Please use those features. If somebody's talking and you absolutely have to say something, unmute and say something, but if that gets too wild, we're gonna go back to the please raise your hand feature. So start with raising your hand. Feel free to cut in from time to time if you need to. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, Mike is raising his hand and lowering it. So we know you know how to do that. Okay, so also please use your reactions for often when we're in a real room, I can't see any of your faces. So if somebody says something and everybody kind of agrees with it and thinks like, yes, that's the right way to go, please use the thumbs up or the applause or not the crying thing, because that's kind of confusing, or heart or something, whatever suits you, to let us know that this is something you agree with. Because normally we'd look at the nodding around the room and say, okay, let's move forward with this and take a vote on it if we need to. And we can't do that today. So please use your emoticons. It'll bring out your inner teenager as you do so. Okay, so without further ado, I guess we have to approve the agenda. Anybody wanna?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Let's do a voice vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay. So the next thing is to approve the meeting minutes from the last time. Since we had no substantive motions, there's a whole lot on there, but there is a lot of information about things that we decided to modify and research as homework. So I'll entertain a motion for approving the notes unless anyone has comments.
Motion to approve. This is Dwayne.
Second, this is Amy.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Unanimous. All right. That means that we get to return to the exciting part of today, which is the integrated draft. And we're going to go to section 403.7.5. I think the way we're going to cover it today, based on the agenda that we all approved, was to go through the rest of the integrated draft and then come back to the homework that we all, that some of us took on. So Krista, do you want to lead us through the rest of this?
Sure. Let's see. So there was a fairly substantial rewrite for hotel motel through this. And a specific section put in for non-transitory dwelling units on energy recovery systems that refers you to a different rate than those for hotel motel and commercial.
Did anyone in looking over that section have any comments about it?
Do we define transient and non-transient?
I don't think they're in the energy code, but I do believe they are in the building code.
Mike has a comment, a question. Mike Kennedy.
Sorry, I was muted. I just wanted to note the 500 square feet would be technically, well, it is a reduction in efficiency in the sense that I don't think we have a size limit by our current balanced ventilation requirement. I'm not opposed to this though, but.
And I was wrong. It's not in there's no definition in the IBC.
A non-transient dwelling unit sounds interesting. That sounds like it's more of a permanent unit where someone is staying there longer than, say, one night.
Dwayne, you have a comment or question?
Yes, we define dwelling unit, and I think the term dwelling unit means non-transient dwelling unit, right?
I don't think so.
Because dwelling once it's a transient dwelling unit, then it's an R1. It's some kind of hotel motel occupancy, right?
Well, I think this kind of came about because of all of the vacation rentals and a lot of people developing and changing R2s into more of a transitory sharing rental place rather than an actual living area, living space.
Well, I would say that if right here, this expert group can't quite figure out what we're talking about, that normal civilians won't be able to either. So without bogging down Chell on his very first item of the very first date, maybe we need to have somebody define non-transient dwelling units and figure out a definition to add and any other things we need to clarify. I also agree with Mike Kennedy that right now there's no lower limit on our dwelling unit rules. And in fact, Seattle's booming with these little tiny dwelling units that are under 500. So it's not just an academic point.
It's a pretty narrow definition, and non-transient dwelling units that cannot be over 500 square feet. I find that odd. 500 square feet is a pretty common number for actually a one-bedroom apartment. Studios range from 250 to 450.
So question for the tag, do we already require energy recovery for dwelling units?
Yes, we require balanced ventilation with energy recovery.
So if we already require this, then do we need any of these, this additional text?
Well, Krista can probably give us a little lecture on this, but I think the idea is that we're trying to keep our stringency, but use ICC language where possible, right, Krista?
For the most part, yes. Not that we're tied to using that if you don't want to update it to the 2021 language.
I guess if we already have this requirement in the Washington State Energy Code 2018, why would we provide exceptions to that? Mike Kennedy.
Yeah, the section in the Washington Code that covers this is 403.3.6. And my note on this one is that we should consider, at the very minimum, moving our existing language to this section, because this is the energy recovery section. So it's C403.3.6. The new language there in 761, it had a couple issues. One is it specifies an enthalpy, but not a sensible recovery. And I mean, I guess that's okay, but I think we've pretty much, it's general agreement. We really are looking at sensible recovery here. And I thought maybe we should just use our existing language, but move it to that other section and maybe keep the R3 exception. I don't know enough about R3, but it seemed like that might be a reasonable exception.
Dwayne.
So I'm wondering, Chell, this doesn't bode well for the next several hours of tag meeting. Are you going to set up some kind of process by which things that just need some more thinking and work will get that thinking and work assigned to one of us to come back with? Because I personally have a really hard time rewriting a bunch of code on the fly with 20 people listening. It's and I almost always make a mistake if I'm trying to do it that way. Maybe the rest of you are more brilliant than that, but how are you going to go ahead and handle all that?
Well, as the former chair of this tag, do you have any suggestions?
Give up and run away.
Too late.
Yeah, I think that you have to put on your striped referee shirt, and at a certain point, you know, call one of these and say, okay, Mike Kennedy, you rewrite this the way you think it should be, and then we'll talk about that next time, or something like that.
Yep, I guess what is the process if Dwayne, I appreciate that, and I'll second that motion. Krista, what is the process if, let's say, there are 2 or 3 outstanding items that don't get resolved today? Do we need to convene another tag ahead of the MVE committee, or could we bring those to the MVE committee to integrate in this next week?
I believe we could just mention that at the MVE committee meeting that there is still some revision that will happen to the language in those particular sections. Basically, we just are looking at setting what the document will be that we're inviting people to make code change proposals on. So we can still forward the language as it exists now and just treat those remaining refinements as code change proposals.
Okay, would it be possible for the MVE to accept some minor suggestions next week? If, for instance, Mike Kennedy comes back with something?
That would be up to you as chair.
Okay, well, I would
yes.
be in favor of that. If we have a few pieces of homework coming out of today for the MVE committee to then integrate those into the integrated draft next time. Okay, we have Lisa, I think, raise your hand first.
Yeah, only comment I had to the small is just that if there is a definition, of course, you know, if you're going to go non-transient versus transient, just should italicize the term, and just a note for Krista on that one, depending on which way we go.
Yep, definitely. David, David, ready?
My experience with the term definition transient is through rental like this that we're talking about, and I think that the criteria is anything less than 30 days of stay. And I guess my comment would be that I like this idea of just using the language we have, replacing this with what we have, and then making proposals from that. I think this IACC proposal just reinforces that we were already on the right track.
So to be clear, what's on the screen right now is crossing out the IECC language and including our prior definition. That's what you support? Okay, great. Dwayne. Dwayne, you're on mute.
As a building official, we don't have any idea if it's dwelling units that are being constructed. We don't know in advance that they're going to be rented out or lived in permanently. It looks the same to us, and therefore we can't evaluate what's transient and non-transient on these things. And in fact, as far as I know, a lot of these properties switch from one to the other over the years. So the non-transient thing is something that to me is unenforceable.
So if we revert back to our prior language as was suggested and is on the screen right now, then we would avoid the definition of or the inclusion of transient in this. So that seems like a good path. So does anybody disagree with what is on the screen, including that in the integrated draft? With, of course, changing that number in there. Does anybody think that that's not a good way to go? Okay. Well, we've made our first decision, and Mike doesn't even have to do homework on this. Mike is raising his hand. Mike Fowler is raising his hand.
Yeah, sorry, Chell. I was trying to find my raise hand button. I'm in complete agreement with keeping our 2018 language in this section. The only comment I have is the 2021 IECC has a 50% at cooling design, and our current language does not address cooling. I mean, or I guess, are we saying that no matter if it's cooling or heating, is at 60%? That's the only thing I thought might have some value from if there's the 50% cooling, but that can always become a code proposal if that wants to get added in. Because we're aligned with the 60% at heating or 60% heating recovery.
Does anybody have any notion about that relative efficiency if we maintain the 60% and how that would relate to the cooling efficiency?
We got an engineer on the call somewhere, don't we?
I guess that would be me. This is Elizabeth. I'm not off the top of my head, though. I don't think I can make an assessment. I mean, it's not that different. I wouldn't think that there would be a big difference in cooling efficiency versus heating efficiency for this kind of a system.
Okay.
I'll
And
follow
Henry?
and just say stay with our recommendation of leaving our 2018 language and carrying that into the integrated draft.
Okay. Henry?
Yeah, I would say, we're heating dominated climate and savings would come from heating energy. So we could just focus on that. And I believe this also is in alignment with the 2018 Seattle Code, which defines total enthalpy at the design outdoor winter conditions. So might be good consistency to strike that.
Okay, great. I think we have general consensus on this. So let's move forward. Great suggestions. I think that we worked really well together on that.
And the 5C will go away per our earlier decision.
Mike Kennedy.
The section just above this 781, above the table, yeah, the damper section there. Oh wait, yeah, 781. Sorry. There's an exception here, exception 1.2. Which is at 400 CFM here. The IECC moves this down to 300.
Okay. Krista, do you want to check on that? And then if so, we'll just move this to 300. And that could be homework for later, I guess, as well.
Okay, so just adjusting the SI conversion for the motor nameplate horsepower and adding 2 new exceptions.
Anyone have thoughts on this?
Can you scroll back up? I'm sorry to see. Is it the motor nameplate?
Yes.
I have no issues. From my standpoint, I don't know if everyone else, but I have no issues.
Number 4 and 6 saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's
Seem a
that was
little.
what I was gonna say.
All right.
So
Those
is
two
there
are
one that's better than the other or more stringent than the other?
the 4 is more stringent than
Slightly, yeah.
6. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It's kind of an odd thing because the whole rule, this rule is about that you have to pick the next size up from the fan that you've calculated. So why is that? Yeah, that last exception was sort of irrelevant.
David, ready?
Oh, that I was just gonna mention. Yeah, 4 and 6 are the same.
Okay,
Sorry.
great.
There we go.
I was told some motors are just, that's what they're rated in, is the input power. And so it was a way of getting more inclusive in the section.
Okay, well, let's strike 6 as shown, and if someone wants to make a code change proposal, they're more than welcome to.
This is Louis. I think they're actually the same, so what you did is fine. I think kind of going along with Mike would say if it's the input power, then I think that's why it's less, because you drop the efficiency of the motor. And so, but I think what you did is fine.
Great. Okay, let's move on.
So the fan efficiency was rewritten to move to fan energy index over fan efficiency grade. And including some testing criteria.
And now you see the 0.89 kilowatts.
Yeah, so ideally that would be correlated with the prior section if they're referring to the same type of equipment.
You know, maybe Mike Kennedy can chime in on this. What I might say is on the previous section, you might just put an or in there, because it sounds like if it's rated at input, and then if the rating of the thing is on input power, as Mike's suggesting, or the nameplate is just the actual one, then I don't know, Mike, what do you think? See what I'm saying?
I had the conversation with the people that proposed this actually, and I came away thinking, oh, maybe it is okay, but I cannot remember the specific reasoning, unfortunately.
Okay, Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
Where's my mute? There we go. Oh, there we go. I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. Same comment as before with regards to definition. I just checked in the definitions chapter. Fan energy index is a defined term, so we should put that in italics.
Okay, great. Henry.
Just real quick, if we're going to add that to that exception 4, we should change it to 0.75 instead of 0.89 or equivalent to horsepower.
But we're talking about output and input.
Yeah, it's not a conversion. It's different.
Okay.
Henry.
I'm done.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think we can move on. We've correlated these two. I think that's a positive.
And there are a number of new exceptions added.
David, ready?
Is exception 6 for ceiling fans, maybe that should just be a definition that we add because it, instead of doing IE, or maybe that just we eliminate ceiling fans and just say, it seems awkward language there.
I agree. I guess if this is the only time ceiling fans is being used in the energy code, then it's probably okay to put the language here. If it's being used multiple times, then we probably want it in the definitions.
Yeah, that's really bad code writing.
Yeah, as an example, portable devices. Michael Bernick.
Yeah, exception 1 and 2 mention embedded fans. Is that defined anywhere? I guess I'm just not familiar with that term.
I think it means that fans that are part of another piece of equipment.
Like an RTU.
Is that clear in the code what an embedded fan is or a not embedded fan?
Probably not.
Was it clear in industry jargon, I guess?
Oh yeah, industry jargon is very well understood, but yeah, I don't know if that applies to everybody necessarily using this code.
I thought a definite.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
A separate topic, but does anyone know for exception number 7, is that intended only for smoke exhaust or something else in addition?
Pretty sure it's for smoke exhaust.
Yeah, okay.
Mike Kennedy.
Embedded fan has been added to the definitions.
Oh, good.
Great. Let's italicize
ceilings. I'm sorry, what?
Let's italicize it then. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it was fan, comma, embedded. Ceiling fan is not, but we do define the term now. This is a new definition too. Large diameter ceiling fan. But it also just says a ceiling fan that has blades bigger than so and so.
Yeah, and this would appear to be even small ceiling fans, 3-foot diameter.
They probably should have defined ceiling fans just like they did embedded fans, is what I'm thinking. But it's probably one of those oversights.
Yep. I think it can be improved. I don't want to have this amazingly intelligent group write a definition right now. Could we just say that we will yes, put it in a definition. Yes, add a definition, remove the definition from exception 6, and move on. Does someone need to propose a definition, Krista, or do you think you can take care of that?
I can probably take care of that.
Okay, great.
And I can give you, or either Mike or I can get a hold of the people that did this section and probably give you that definition. They worked a long time. It's the AMCA group, and they'll probably have a definition. So I can send you one, Krista, and you can decide whether you want to use it or not.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Are there any more comments on the exceptions here? Okay, then let's move on to the next section, which has been stricken.
Yeah, there is a definition in ASHRAE for ceiling fans, so I'd probably just pull that since this is supposed to harmonize with ASHRAE 90.1.
Sounds great.
So this replaces our previous efficacy language with a new table for low capacity fans.
David, ready?
So I see that this section has an exception for domestic range hoods. However, the residential code does have a fan power limit on range hoods. I'm just wondering. I don't think this is a decrease in stringency because this wasn't covered before, but it's not consistent with the residential code. I guess the reason why is maybe because this is not just group R as was stricken from up above.
Okay, so I guess we could take a code change proposal later to align the two. Unless there's language you can suggest that would align them now that is from either the IECC or the Washington State Energy Code 2018.
In the 2018 residential code, there is a lot. You could add a row to the table below HRV, ERV. And for domestic range hoods, I can plug it into the chat, I think.
I guess I don't think we can pull from the residential code for the commercial code right now. We can only pull from either the 2018 IECC, 2021 IECC, or the 2018 commercial energy code. So I think you'd be great at writing an energy code proposal for this.
Okay. Sounds good.
And Krista, I see you writing that. Is that something the integrated draft should do? Or is that something that should be a code change proposal?
It can go either way. Certainly, it's not language that I would like to write myself.
Yeah, how about we
So
entertain
probably a code change proposal.
Okay, let's do that. Let's entertain a code change proposal in the next few months about harmonizing them. I think it would be useful to do so. Dwayne.
Whenever you say let's, does that mean you're going to do it, or do you need to assign that to somebody in particular? I'm worried that we have so many of those they might get lost.
For a code change proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, let's assign somebody. David, did you want to do that? David, ready? Or do we have other volunteers?
Sure. Yeah, I'm writing it down.
All right.
David, this is Lewis. Maybe you could reach out to me on that one. We've been monkeying around a lot with it. So.
Oh, sure.
All right. Thanks.
Are you sure you don't want to just take it?
I don't know enough about it yet to know the right answer.
Okay.
So.
Okay. We'll just work together.
Okay.
Good. Sounds great. Thanks for bringing that up, Dwayne.
And then the new requirement for large diameter ceiling fans.
Dwayne, your hand is still up. Mike Kennedy, you also raised your hand.
Right. You talking, Dwayne?
Go ahead, Mike.
My comment here is, so in 4391, heat rejection equipment, we have the exception, which is heat rejection devices where it's included in equipment efficiency of the tables in section 43.3.2. Then the requirement is below that, and it says the heat rejection equipment shall meet the minimum performance of table 43.3.2, and it's table 7 within that group. It seemed, I don't know, I mean, I understand what they're doing here, I guess, but that seems like kind of a circle or somehow recursion somehow.
Yes, it does.
I mean, I know what they're trying to get away from having to list every frickin' table. So it might be, you know, I suppose we could add in the tables in section, well, not including that one, 403.3.27.
So just from
I don't know.
So if we left the tables as they used to be, would that be adequate?
If we listed all the tables that include equipment that have heat rejection devices, I mean, they're new table numbers, so we couldn't use the same table numbers, but yeah.
Okay, if it's clearer to list all the tables, then let's.
Well, yeah.
I think they're trying to get away from cooling towers, right, Mike? Isn't that what the heat rejection?
Well, they're trying to get, you know, in other words, if your heat rejection device is part of the rating of any other piece of equipment, then it doesn't have to meet this. But if it's not part of the rating, which is, yeah, generally a cooling tower, but some built up dry coolers, you know, anything.
Dwayne, your hand is now up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that to you and Krista, I found definitions for ceiling fan and large diameter ceiling fan on the AMCA website, which refer to a federal standard. So I'll send those to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, Dwayne, they're in ASHRAE 90.1. So, and large diameter ceiling fan is already added to the definitions for the
Oh, we got it?
2021.
Does it say over 7 feet?
Yes.
Okay, good. Never mind.
Okay. New section for heat recovery in healthcare facilities.
Lisa.
Hi, I have a question, and Chris, this is more of a, it's not due to a change, but just a generic question. So not for this section, but I'm flipping back and forth here on my screens. It's the heat recovery for service water heating. That particular title, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it does say what that's doing, but it truly is like a condenser heat recovery section where the language has been changed, you know, steam condensate systems, refrigeration, condenser heat recovery. Would a proposal, do you need a proposal to say, can we come up with a little bit clearer title? Like, how does that work if we think that the title could be improved?
I think that it should probably be a code change proposal since it's not something that is changing based on IECC changes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because it's not it doesn't change the requirement. It just makes it a little bit better title. So okay, I'll note that. Thanks.
All right, Lisa, you volunteered for that?
Sure, that's an easy one.
Okay, thanks,
it's
Mike.
in my list.
I was a bit concerned about the new language and how it played with our current heat recovery requirements. And I couldn't totally wrap my head around this, but we did have added quite a few things. Robbie O'Leary proposed, and we accepted some other heat recovery stuff related to healthcare. And I guess I thought maybe this needed to have some more, it needed to have someone, an engineer, look at this and see how it plays with some of the other areas of code.
So that sounds like a homework assignment.
Mike, are you referring to the section above C43.9.2.4? The heat recovery
I
for
do
space.
not.
I think that's the one that Robbie worked on.
There's a couple of different areas, and I can't pull up the. I mean, we do have the condenser heat recovery. It's up there that Lisa was just talking about, and then there was one.
The one, if
think
you
it's
scroll
actually-
up just a little bit, Krista, the one I was referring to is the space heating one.
Right.
So if the 2018 2021 IECC doesn't make a change to the 2018 Washington State Energy Code, we today have no jurisdiction to change it. So it's only where we see red on the screen that we have the ability to change it, is my understanding. So there's lots of code change proposals that we should make and be writing down opportunities for, and that seems like that's one of them if it's not in red on the screen.
And this one, I did have some question because it was inconsistently treated by ICC, and it isn't actually in their printed first edition. So I sent off an errata. I haven't heard back from them, but everything else shows that it was approved and should be there, but it wasn't in the printed version. So there is that question hanging over it as well.
Okay, Lisa, do you have another question, comment? The hand is up. Okay, so there's suggested that some correlation needs to happen between this and other sections. Is there someone or a couple of people who want to look at that? Any volunteers? If no volunteers, then we'll probably just have to make it a code change proposal that somebody does later. Then we'll have to volunteer somebody for that. David.
I mean, there's another option just to not include this section, because I'm just reading the other section I mentioned that it seems that this is less stringent for Group I buildings, whereas the other section has no exclusion for Group I or any indication. It only applies to Group I.
Dwayne.
Are you getting rid of exception 2?
Yes.
Well, I guess I heard David saying, what if we, are you saying, David, that we get rid of the entire C403.9.2.5 or just one of the exceptions?
The entire section, similar to what we did with the ventilation. This I read this as Mike mentioned, conflicting with other sections, and it, at least for Group I, it seems to make it less stringent.
Okay, use your emoticons, people, and let me know if you agree with what David is suggesting. A thumbs up from Dwayne, Amy, Eric, Michael. Okay, so all right, let's reject this whole section, and then if someone wants to make a code change proposal to reincorporate it, they could do so, or something like that. Okay, great. Lisa.
Yeah, so for this section, C403.10.1.2, this is actually a question for the tag on this one. And it's residual from 2018. So the last sentence in this section where it talks about how the ductwork needs to be insulated per the envelope section of the code. When you read through the table where it talks about, insulation requirements for outside air, it appears that, like, we were getting confused. It appears that maybe there's 2 requirements for the same thing. I don't know if somebody's going to come up with a code change proposal to do something like that, but I don't know if has anybody else noted that, or maybe I'm just not reading it right.
What's the other section number? Yep,
The
where it
other
is now?
Yeah, so if you look under, so under the new sentence there, right? This is an older sentence where it points to, you know, the ductwork needs to be insulated the same as an exterior wall is what it says. However, if you look at the new table already gives direction on how outdoor air ductwork is supposed to be insulated. And so I wasn't sure about this. We were kind of confused. It looks like maybe you've got two places that are referring to the same ductwork, but giving two different directions on how to insulate it. But again, I'm not sure if I'm reading it wrong.
So the conflict between table 403.10.11 and the other table?
And that sentence where it points to
402.13.
402.13, where it says you need to insulate that ductwork to the same as an exterior wall, which is really old language. We've had that for a really long time. And our assessment was that this table replaces that. But again, I'd like to reach to the tag and get your opinion on that.
I guess if we're not supposed to go backwards, if we were less stringent on the duct insulation, that would be going backwards. So it would seem to me like we would need to maintain the higher level of insulation, and then we would entertain code change proposals later to lower that insulation if it is reasonable to do so.
Yeah, and this is left over from 2018, so this is not something new for the 2021. So
okay, so it's a correlation between the existing code and the existing code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so is that something we're doing now, or is that something we're doing later?
I don't think we're doing that today.
No, code change proposal.
So Lisa, did you volunteer for that one as well?
I mean, happy to do that one. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand like what we're going to take a look at today. So yeah, we're not going to pick up anything that we perceive as potentially an error that's residual. That'll be done later. Is that right? Okay.
We're only correlating the 2021 IECC to the 2018 Washington State Energy Code. That's the only thing we're doing today. And then we're also assigning people like you wonderful code change proposals that you suggest.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mike Kennedy.
I have substantial revisions to this section, Lisa, that I tried to get through in 2018 working with the proponent, because I had a really hard time with the way that the table and the section kind of said the same thing. And then there were these links in the table about getting more information in the sections that then repeated what was in the table. And anyway, so I'd love to work with you on it.
Great. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, sounds like you kind of saw the same thing that we did. Great. Okay.
We have a team working on it. I love it. All right, let's move on.
Coordinate. Okay, thank you.
I want to note that we're halfway through the code. Page 111 out of 213.
Just a minor language change there. New exception for pipe insulation. That's pretty much a no-brainer. And then this.
I'm sorry to go up about the radiant. Quick question: when we say radiant, right? We're saying in-floor radiant heating, because I view that as in radiant heating systems. That could be right. It's in slab radiant systems that we don't need insulation.
Yeah, there could be wall or ceiling radiant heating systems in theory, right? So
yeah.
Does anybody know the intent of the original IECC language? Was it for radiant slab systems?
Well, the rationale right there basically just says could be misinterpreted to require insulation on piping used for radiant heating and doesn't really provide more.
I mean, maybe that's just the change. It should say in slab in radiant heating system.
Actually, the way I read it, it's just the few sections of piping that are actually radiating heat. So, you know, it's not the piping that goes to the object that is radiating heat. It's the actual pipe within the object. So even if you had a radiant wall system, it's only the pipe doesn't need to be insulated when it's actually radiating the heat
Used as that
piece of equipment. So, Henry.
I think the little comment to the right kind of maybe narrows it down a bit better. The active sections of radiant piping or something like that. You just don't want the main hot water feeder from the heating plant to the radiant slab to be uninsulated. So something to mitigate that. But
I think though that this is what it says. The sections of piping that are intended to radiate are exempted. That to me, this is a fairly simple sentence that works fine.
I agree. Okay, we have a couple thumbs up. You can't do a thumbs down, so we can only get thumbs up on this. But I think it's clear enough. So let's move on.
I seem to remember that earlier we did something with the operable interlock. I'm not recalling what it is now.
It was different temperature settings, right?
Yeah.
Lisa.
85 instead of 90.
Please.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it was. I can go. I think I have it in my notes on which sections we were trying to correlate. But yeah, there were 3 different sections that were all kind of talking about the same thing. We were trying to correlate them.
Yeah, I've got it in my notes someplace.
Okay. I can, if I find it in my notes, I'll put it in the chat, Krista.
Okay.
Great.
And we're out of 403. Yay. So changing the energy rating for fossil fuel heaters. This is importing a table from the IPC on water volume determination. As an alternate. Some additional clarification on circulation systems. Looks like this is actually out of a previous section. So this is moved up to the earlier section. And just as more on the controls.
Dwayne.
Could we go back up to 40471? Because the second sentence there says that the return pipe is a dedicated return pipe. And then there's a sentence that we've added about water entering the cold water piping, which is that, what do they call that ridiculous system where people use the cold water supply pipe as the return for the hot water circulation, which we just flat out prohibit in Seattle. But I think that sentence directly conflicts with the statement above that says that you're using a dedicated return pipe, not the cold water supply pipe for your return. So I think that whole thing just goes away. But I'm the non-engineer on the call. Joyce?
Lisa has a comment. Is that about the same subject, Lisa?
Yeah, actually, I had that flagged as a potential conflict in the code, but again, part of my comment was with regards to problematic language in the 2018 code. So again, that might be something that is outside the scope of what we're doing today, but I agree with Dwayne that I think there's a conflict here.
Dwayne, is that the same conflict you saw? That, are you saying we just strike out what's on the?
I think the whole sentence is irrelevant since it conflicts with the second sentence in that paragraph.
Okay. And then Lisa, to your point, there was a larger conflict that you were alluding to. Is that something that you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
proposal?
I have to get in the weeds on this because it actually touches on it really deserves a code change proposal as cleanup. But I agree with Dwayne that one sentence just makes it worse. So taking it out helps. And then a code change proposal, I think, is needed here to deal with a conflict.
We've been assigning Lisa a lot of code change proposals. Anybody else want to take this, or Lisa, are you happy to?
Well, if there's a surface water heater expert, heating expert, I would like to pick this one up.
In 4048, that terminology is defined a demand recirculation water system is specifically one of those that runs hot water circulation back through the cold water pipe. So Seattle code, we just strike out all the language there and say not allowed, but I'm not sure what to do with this language here.
Yeah, I agree, Dwayne. I had that flagged as well. Does Seattle, well, maybe Seattle's language would be a nice code change proposal for this.
Yeah. But Lisa, ping me and we'll do that together.
David, do you have a
comment? I was just going to say, yeah, this is talking about two different types of systems. C404.7 is one type of system, and C404.8 is, as Dwayne pointed to, this defined system type. So yeah, I don't think moving this makes any sense.
Okay, Mike Kennedy.
Oh, a lot of work went into this last code cycle by Eric Vandermeer to straighten out the previous codes version. And I don't know about these systems, but I kind of generally trust that he got the language somewhere close to where it should be.
Okay, it sounds like we'll strike out the language in the previous section that Krista struck out. And then somebody, Lisa and others, might work on a code change proposal to align these or to align with other language.
Should I revert this back to the 2018 language with two exceptions or the 2 points then?
We have a couple of Henry and David are in favor of that. Is anybody not in favor of that? Wayne also in favor of that. Okay, let's do that then. Krista?
Okay.
Hey, Shell, what if we use, here's this open mouth thing. Could we use that for disagree?
That sounds good. Yeah, what is that? That's like some weird cheeks and an open mouth. Sure, that could
There
be a
should
disagree
also
button.
be a red X.
Oh, yes, you can do a red X, can't you?
Okay, maybe that's better. Yeah.
Here we are. Okay, so we have the thumbs up, we have the red X, we have the raised hand. Typing like my daughters. All right.
Just changing the title.
It sounds reasonable and it's not enforceable code, the titles, so.
And on into electrical power and lighting.
So just to note to everybody, if you do the red X, you have to undo the red X later. So Dwayne is disagreeing with everything anyone says right now.
Yeah, it's because you're all wrong.
Probably. All right, any thoughts on this one? Mike Kennedy has a thought on it. Mike Kennedy? We don't hear you. Okay, David Reddy. What's your thought?
In C405.1.1, it looks like it strikes out dwelling and sleeping unit and then replaces it with just dwelling units and strikes out sleeping units in below as well. Is there a new section for sleeping units, or is this intended to change the code to not apply to sleeping units?
Mike Kennedy. I don't hear you, Mike Kennedy. Anybody have an answer for David's question?
Sorry, I'm having phone problems.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, are we still back at 405.1.1?
Yes, I'm just trying. I thought there was a new section on sleeping units, but I'm not seeing it right away.
That is one of my comments about these sections. In the general in 405.1, it still refers sleeping units to this section. And we did last code thing, create this section to catch all this. So I think that this should apply to sleeping units, and I think it's okay to strike it from the title, but I think it should include sleeping units as part of the text there.
CJ.
I also
go ahead, Mike.
I had a problem up in the first section. I had a problem with the definition of general lighting, which basically says any light that doesn't have specific application controls is general lighting. So by definition, everything in specific application controls is not general lighting and doesn't need general lighting controls. And we have egress lighting listed. We actually have it in two places, but it is listed in specific application controls. And I would, and maybe CJ can correct this, but I would think things like occupancy sensors for during occupied mode for emergency or egress lighting, that's say a light in a classroom, that some of that lighting would have regular controls on it, I would think. Anyway, I was concerned about that overlap in that definition.
There is actually a definition of general lighting in the definitions. And that's interior lighting that provides a substantially uniform level of illumination throughout a space.
So why are they kind of redefining it here, I wonder? Or no, okay, they're not redefining it here. Sorry, I was wrong about that. CJ, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I've been trying to parse this as well. And I believe that they've really just tried to be consistent with where they say lighting and general lighting throughout this section. Mike, I don't know. I don't have an answer to what you were saying relative to that issue with the definition. However, relative to this dwelling unit and the sleeping unit section, reading what the comment says, it really is trying to, it seems to me that they're trying to avoid having people need to look at the residential code section because of the fact that they think that changing to 90% of the lighting being high efficacy is just reasonable to have. I have concerns with this as well, because there is some trickle down. Krista, I know you were starting to scroll and see where else they do speak to dwelling and sleeping units throughout the rest of this section. And I know Andrew and I have been trying to scroll through what they've been marking up in this. I don't actually have a specific, I think that this is a good thing or a bad thing, given that, you know, our cursory review of this bleeding on the code here is it really is just trying to bring it to be consistent with IECC. But it does avoid the need for us to have to go to the residential code section. And I have concerns about that just because this group is tasked with looking at commercial issues. The decisions about what the lighting should be in sleeping and dwelling units is something that I really do believe is the purview of a different session. It's, I feel like referencing to that other group who's going to be looking at those levels of consideration is wise. So I guess I'm not saying yay or nay. I'm wondering if we might want to just put this into the proposal section.
And that's a really good point, CJ. Today, we're only looking at the 2021 IECC and the 2018 Washington State Energy Code and where they clash and what is not moving us backwards. That's kind of the main purview for today. So we choose one or the other or some combination of the two. Mike.
Well, my concern is, I guess, in the general section where we say, hey, sleeping units are going to comply with either C511 or they're going to comply with the lighting power C405.4. And then C511 no longer supports sleeping units. So if we restore that, I think that's good. It's covered. Sleeping units have the option to do either path. And this path does something as opposed to this path not actually having any language that impacts it.
So Mike, I guess, what are you suggesting regarding the language on the screen? Are you suggesting?
Actually, I think the language on the screen is good. If we deleted egress lighting from specific application controls, I would probably feel better about it. But the redefinition of general lighting, I guess, because we already deal with specific application controls in C5. Maybe that's code change.
Yep.
But we mention it 2 places.
Okay, Dwayne, you had your hand up next, I think.
A few things. One is that 40511, the second line says dwelling units or sleeping units. If we're taking out sleeping units, you should strike it there as well. And I'm not quite sure what CJ's comment was about, because it's certainly within our purview to do all, multifamily and hotel, buildings. The controls now for sleeping units are in additional lighting controls, C40526 now, and it's a pretty simple thing. And then there's even something about dwelling units is item number 3 in that additional lighting controls section. So we need to tie into, if we're going to refer people to something that it needs, I think, to get to this additional lighting controls section, right?
That makes sense. Mike McGivern?
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't we not be going backwards if we eliminate units? And in addition, just a comment that it seems like they may be trying to capture luminaires that are like light fixtures that are lamps and so on, that would be considered general lighting in, say, a hotel or a sleeping unit.
Mike, I think that that's intentional, that these rules that apply to an office space or a lobby or something like that don't make any sense when you're talking about a little apartment or a hotel room. And so I think all the rules for dwelling units and sleeping units are sort of separate from the rules we use for more commercial spaces.
David, ready?
Maybe this is just, I never noticed this before, but down as footnotes of tables C4, the lighting power allowance tables, there's a reference for dwelling and sleeping units to R404.1 in the residential energy code. I'd never noticed that before, so I don't know, is that reference correct when we have this section up above for dwelling and sleeping units?
I think that was supposed to be changed.
That's just the one that says 90% of your fixtures.
Yeah, but we have C505.1.1, which I think has almost the same language as the R section, but
yeah,
just
the point of adding C5, the 405.11 was to make it so everything pointed to the commercial code. This is either an oversight on my part, because I did that proposal, or something that got lost in the tag process.
No, this was specifically changed at some point because we were rewriting things on the fly, and I know the residential reference got added back in at some point in one of the work sessions.
Okay, well, this sounds like a great code change proposal. Mike, anybody want to make that proposal in a couple months?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. David, do you still have a question? David, ready?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll take my hand down.
Okay. Okay, so we still have, I feel like we don't have a direction forward on this C405.1 section. How many people think that it is wonderful as written now? And you can give your thumbs up, or you can do your red X. Use your emoticons. How many people think it's wonderful as written?
If you don't say wonderful.
Indifferent?
Okay, it's acceptable for an integrated draft. Okay, CJ thinks it's acceptable for an integrated draft. Anybody else think it's not acceptable and want to spend more time on it?
Do we think the definition of general lighting that is in addition to the defined term for general lighting is adding, or should we take that sentence out?
CJ, what do you think?
Well, I think we need to keep it in order to be consistent, since they've been deliberate in their use of the term general lighting instead of where it says lighting pretty much throughout the markups.
Right. It's just that this defines general lighting differently than our definition does, right? Potentially.
Isn't Mike, isn't the term general lighting, it's highlighted, right? Or it's italics, so.
It's defined.
Right, so it sounds like there's two definitions, because you would go back to chapter 2, and then in this section, general lighting has a description too. So it does seem like it's two definitions, or am I missing something there?
It should be italicized.
Andrew, do you have a comment on this particular subject?
Well, I was going to mention that it should be italicized, and it looks like it was changed to say sleeping units. So I would agree if it had the word sleeping units back into it, as you have it.
Okay, so do we, general lighting should consist of all lighting included when calculating the total. So it sounds like there's a relationship issue. Does someone want to take this as homework and come back to the MDE committee on Thursday, next Thursday, with something that is slightly different than this, but covers what we all hope it will?
Yeah, I will, because I just don't have anything else to do on my plate. I will try to wade through this. And
you've got a meeting at 1 today, don't you?
Just a little one, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dwayne. And Krista, does that need to be supplied far ahead of the MV meeting, or could it be supplied like just in time?
He can bring it up at the meeting. That's fine.
Awesome. All right. Okay, bio break. How about we take 3 minutes and we just come back in 3 minutes and everybody can stretch and do their 3-minute yoga video if they want.
I can only smoke half my cigarette.
And you have to be 25 feet away from any entrances, so to run fast. All right, see you all in 3 minutes.
I apologize. That was my oversight.
No worries. Mike Kennedy.
I've not ever experienced this control, but I wondered whether the 20% of full power, I mean, that's basically turning the light off, as my under, I mean, 20% power, I don't know, is that 20% light in an LED fixture? Anyway, I wondered whether that was enough.
Andrew?
Well, first, I was looking at 600 square feet versus the 300 square feet listed above, and dot one, it's 600 square feet, but in 2.1.3, it's 300 square feet. And I'm not sure where you're seeing the 20%, Mike. Oh, I see
in
it
the
now.
yeah, in the terms of how far the light has to back down.
Yes.
So Andrew, I was confused about that same thing between the 300 and 600. What it's saying is that these rules apply anytime your open plan office is larger than 300. But say if you've got a 2,000 square foot open office area, each separately controlled area can't be more than 600.
Great, thank you.
CJ.
Okay, I just want to be in support of the integrated draft as it's written here. I think that it all makes pretty good sense to me. I actually, the only question I had was also wondering what the 20%, why that was set as the specific level as well, Mike. But perhaps I think from the opposite perspective, because I just don't think there's any corollary between percentage and power on the same, at the other end of the stick. Let's set a target, that's fine. I don't know that it's going to be easy to control that anyway, but I definitely am in favor of the changes in this entire section.
Great. Anything that anybody really needs to change before we move on with this as the integrated draft for this section? Okay, consensus. Thank you. Mike Kennedy.
I had some concern. Never mind. Well, I guess I wondered, I guess this is for CJ, is, okay, this turns all, I guess I wasn't clear that there was any mechanism to require that the lights be go off 100% off, like when the building's unoccupied. Like here's this occupancy sensor function, and it seems like up in 2.1.4, we have a clause that, you know, has to go full off on a time clock, because anything that's required to have an occupancy sensor doesn't have to have a time switch control. And that used to be covered in the section corridors, used to be in, but not in this one. So they don't ever have to go full off.
And I could mention that this did come up in the IECC hearings, and somebody had wanted the corridors to go dark, and just because of people's uncomfortableness about going into a dark corridor, that it was decided to do 50% instead.
Well, scroll up. Can you scroll up just a little bit, Krista, to the last item in 2.14? There. Yeah, just that item 2. What we have for parking garages there.
Parking garages.
So, I don't know. Maybe it is a code change proposal. Sure.
Sounds like it. Okay, let's move on.
Just a little clarifying language. And a new exception for specific application controls.
CJ has a comment or question.
Can you scroll back up to C405.2.1.6? There you go. Thank you. So again, this is back to the service corridor versus corridor issue. This is something new that has been added into the Washington State Code, and it potentially affects public or working circulation space. So the other thing that is listed in here is this exemption that is mandating a provision of providing some sort of a illumination calculation to be able to allow an exception to exist. And I don't know that there's a very good mechanism in place for the review of that. So we don't have any other light level provisions being submitted for anything else in the entire code. So generally speaking, the insertion of this, I want to just flag as maybe being a code change instead of something that should just be slid in.
Okay, I think code change will accept code change proposals starting quite soon.
And CJ, if I can just respond to that, we do require that stairwells turn down not any darker than is allowed by the building code, which has a 1 foot candle at the darkest spot, right? So this was kind of in parallel with that.
Right, but that's egress calc. So that would be in addition to an egress calc.
Right.
Okay, well, code change proposals will be accepted starting quite soon. So
yeah, the exception looks like it's a holdover from when they asked them to go full dark too. I mean, going to 50%, that exception is kind of pointless.
Right.
okay, well, let's move on, and we'll change this in the further tag meetings when we have our code change proposal that makes this better. Mike Kennedy.
I would propose to add the same exception we added to 405, or same clause that we added up above, 4521. That unless specifically required.
But you know what, Mike, I'm reading that exception. What it says is it's exempted if it's a corridor where with all the lights on, it's less than 2-foot candles at the worst spot.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is.
I think we could get rid of it.
Yeah.
The thing that we just added down there doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because it says if you're required by 405.2.6 to have controls, it doesn't make sense as written.
The issue is that some of 40526 says you will comply with CO 405.2.2. And it's the control sections in 40526 refer to this section.
Okay. Okay, makes sense to me now. Thanks.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Because it's an exception. Yeah, okay. I got it. Mike, you have your hand raised again?
It was my impression we were requiring light reduction controls previously, even where there were occupancy sensor controls. Pretty sure of that. No?
Well, okay, maybe I'm not sure. Sorry.
I think that's a 2018 code thing. So yeah, no, because you're not into 2018 yet. Anyway, so I flagged this as a spot where we were going backwards. But maybe the lighting designers can say that, comment on that.
Yeah, this was a section that I had some question on because there seemed to be a lot of crossover and confliction with the other control sections.
I was going to just suggest, you could start it with, well, if you wanted to include OS control places, you could just start it with general lighting shall comply with, so you could just start there right after the comma. But that's only if we want to go ahead and require occupancy sensor spaces to have light reduction controls.
Does CJ or Andrew have an opinion about whether the light reduction controls are a useful thing?
CJ.
I don't really feel strongly about this because if you're in the space, the amount of time that you're in the space is pretty limited. So I think, honestly, if we were to try to analyze how much energy is being consumed for spaces that are small enough to be able to accommodate occupancy sensing, we're talking about not a lot of load. So it just doesn't really matter to me. I don't feel like, I think it's an extra hassle probably for a contractor to have to install the equipment for it. In the grand scheme of things, I don't know how much it's impacting the energy use.
I would tend to agree from an energy perspective, the amount of savings and the hassle for the contractors.
David, ready?
Well, as I read this, it seems to actually reduce the burden. I think on the spaces, it's saying where you don't have occupancy sensor controls, you need lighting reduction controls. So it's not, I think what Mike was saying, if I understood him, was that previously, even if you had an occupancy sensor control in a space required by code, you also needed lighting reduction controls where applicable. So I think this is makes it less stringent, but I think it's a good change.
I agree. If you read the previous sections and you are not by any of those sections required to have occupant sensor controls, then this allows you to
Not put in both.
not put in both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So general consensus on that as leaving integrated draft as written currently. Okay, we have some thumbs up. We don't have any open mouth weird faces or X's. So I'll take that as reasonable consensus. We'll start here.
So this is kind of a mishmash of current Washington State amendment language and new 2021 language in the IECC. And I know there's some conflicts, duplication of some previous language. I tried to catch all of it, but I don't think I caught all of it.
Mike Kennedy.
Yeah, the exceptions are kind of a repeat of the exceptions that we're just seeing the last line of in the parent section. So I think most of the exceptions could go away, or all of them, because they're up above. Light reductions aren't required for these spaces.
CJ, Andrew, anybody want to weigh in on, are all the exceptions, and are all the exceptions here from the IECC and not from the existing Washington State Energy Code? Lisa.
Yeah, I agree with Mike on this one. I spotted that too, that the exception is not to, actually I'd have to see the whole screen. But yeah, this exception is not to the control function part of this provision. The exception is that, these spaces are not required to have, to the parent, as he said. So I think that's correct. But I'd like to hear the lighting folks, hear their opinion about this. Is that what you're thinking, Mike?
Well, I'll say these exceptions are here in the Washington State Code, but
right.
They shouldn't have been here. And in the IECC, they're up above where they should have been.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So we kind of have to choose between the two codes. We can't just.
Well, I think that the exceptions are not for the function. The exceptions are for whether you have light reduction control.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. And so, to your point is, Joe, is that I think the IECC corrected this, so we shouldn't be keeping the Washington State information because it was incorrect.
Okay, yeah, if this language is earlier, then we would be able to strike it And that's, yeah, under 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
mhm.
Okay, does anybody?
I would agree with that.
Okay, does anybody disagree with what just happened on the screen with striking the exceptions here and relying on the exceptions that the IECC added earlier? Okay, great. You have a path forward.
Less words is good.
So this is pretty much just correcting the new term and the section references there.
Okay. All right, let's move on. I don't hear any suggestions.
And this is a new control function.
It seems like this would further increase energy efficiency. So under 6, so it seems like at least we're not going backwards with that one.
Okay, the exception in the IECC is split into primary and secondary. And limits you to a number of watts, where ours was very specific to just 2 light fixtures. And
Mike Kennedy.
That was an accident.
Okay. Go ahead, Krista.
so I've provided both sets of language in here. I wasn't sure which to move forward on. It seems like the IECC exceptions are a little bit less stringent than our current exception, but I thought I'd throw it up to the tag.
I'm not hearing lots of comments on it. I'm not hearing lots of comments, so if there's a question. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so they did some changes, and their IECC is now incorporating primary and secondary daylight zones. And their measurements are a little bit different than our previous measurements. Mike Kennedy.
I have a comment on the previous section.
Okay.
Which right there, that one. The IECC does away with step dimming. If you're required to do dimming, it has to be continuous. Whereas we have the we only required continuous dimming in offices, classrooms, laboratories, and reading rooms. So it seems like, I don't know. Anyway, all the codes have gone to requiring continuous dimming.
Lisa.
So actually, this is a question for Mike. Or maybe for Krista too. So is this the step dimming component? So that's WSCC language and not IECC? The step dimming?
Right now, it's
Yes.
not marked as WSCC language, so that's in with IECC.
But what they've done is take, like what I would suggest we do, we take the content of item 1 here and put it into item 5 in the list above, which is more akin to what the IECC has done.
Yes, I think that's something that you guys set it aside.
Well, yeah, it's good. We'd have to get wordsmith for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And that's
I
definitely.
believe
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I believe the IECC, you could probably just follow their language on that, Krista.
Yeah, that's definitely an increase in stringency.
Right, and that's what the IECC does.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, so do we need homework on this, or is this something Krista can take care of?
I think I can find it.
Actually, Krista, what they
Yeah.
do is that text we moved up is item 5 in the IECC. And then the the thing that was item 5 is item 6 in the IECC. And then the whole section will be the model code.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at least 5 and 6 are the same way the IECC reads.
Sense.
And 7 and 8.
Great. Okay. Let's move on.
Okay, so in the IECC, rooftop monitors are considered side lit rather than top lit. So the language reads a little funny here in item 4. And so I don't know if we want to keep it in top lit or move it to side lit for consistency. And basically that's where it was with the 2015 code, and then we moved it to top lit for 2018 code. I think that was one of Lisa's proposals. So I was unsure.
Mike, do you have your hand raised? Do you have a comment, or do you still?
Yeah, well, I do on item 2. Yeah, the last sentence there, the area of the secondary side lit zone shall not be considered in the calculation of daylight zones for 402.4.1.1. that kind of works in the IECC where their requirement is 25% of net floor area. The Washington Code is requiring 50% of gross floor area. And this seems, I mean, this would make it impossible except in places that are completely top-lit. So I would delete that last sentence, but we can keep it. It's more stringent to keep it, but it basically means that 402.4.1.1 goes from being hard to impossible.
I prefer the code is not impossible.
Well, there's others, 402.4.1.3. So.
Anybody strongly disagree with this approach?
Didn't we just, by striking that, make this less stringent than the IECC and thus violate our own rule?
I think the difference is they only require 20%, 25% of net floor area in 411, and we require 50% of gross.
Okay.
So the net effect is we're still a lot more stringent than they are.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's.
I have a comment on item 4.
Go for it.
I have a really, I guess I question whether roof monitor lighting, I mean, it's moved here. Item 4 came up from top lit. And the reasoning has to do with the requirements for the glazing are more appropriate to glass. But I kind of feel like rooftop monitors, like we require top daylight, you know, we require a minimum amount of skylights and spaces to provide top daylight. And it seems like roof monitors ought to be able to be included in that. And I think they can be currently with their aperture calculation, but suddenly we're classifying this as a side lit space. So either I think it should move back to top lit, or anyway, the word top lit in item 4 should change to side lit.
That makes sense.
It seems odd to have a top lit provision in the side lit space.
Yeah, I just thought that there is kind of a flag. It is side lit in the IECC.
Just side lit from above.
Right. But we used to have, I mean, it's currently in the 2018, it's in the top lit.
And according to the reason statement on the code change proposal at ICC, they think that it was a mistake to put it into the top lit. And apparently the committee agreed. So we'll have to renumber the figure as well.
And relabel.
And relabel it.
Actually, it was not labeled. I don't think it said side lit or top lit originally. There's a couple of them that need to be changed.
Yeah, it's in the top lit section numbering rather than the side lit section numbering.
Oh, you know, and that's another concern I had about this move is right now, side daylit spaces are exempt in some kinds of in A&M occupancies, but top daylight spaces are not. And it seems like this is functionally like a top daylit space from that perspective.
Do you have a suggestion, Mike, as to how we might reconcile this for the integrated draft?
Well, I went and read the reasoning, and I wouldn't have voted for it, moving it in the IECC. but I mean, it gets down to the requirements of the glazing, you know, and we have skylight and I'm not sure that changes because I don't think this becomes a skylight just because it's in the top lit zone. So I actually don't agree with
Okay,
the
well,
reasoning.
we can only reconcile the IECC to the WSCC. So the IECC vote happened.
Right. I just think it messes up the code. The IECC makes a lot of mistakes, I'll just say.
Okay, so other than fixing the table numbering, is there anything else that needs to be done in this section?
And this also adds projection factor language in.
What is this true norther?
Oh, that's a typo.
That's a typo.
True north.
Okay, any comments on this? Okay, since we're moving on, I want to note that we are nearly 3/4 of the way through this, and we have 15 minutes left in the official tag meeting. My guess is we're not going to get through it in the next 15 minutes. So I would entertain a motion to extend this tag meeting for another hour to noon. And then we should check if we have a quorum. Is anybody so moved?
Sure, I'll make a motion to extend the tag meeting 1 hour.
Do we have a second?
Lisa Rosenow, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, is what I hear. I'll oppose, say nay.
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 Okay, Chris, did we need to take a voice vote on this thing, or a roll call vote on this thing? I heard 2 nays and I heard a smattering of unenthusiastic ayes.
We can.
We can use the yes, nos in our participant selections.
Yeah, why doesn't everybody just use your reactions and use the, if you are a tag member, use the no or the yes in your raise hand. I see 8 yeses and 4 nos is what I'm seeing in this. That means both we have a quorum and we have a majority of the quorum. So I think we're
Well,
going
we still have a quorum if those 4 people leave.
We do?
Would we? We have a number of people that didn't vote.
No. Do the people who voted no have to leave?
This is Gavin Tenold. I do have to take off.
Okay.
Mike Baranick, I do as well.
Okay.
Andrew Poltorek, I do have to leave. However, I'm an alternate. So if CJ is staying, I don't think my vote would matter one way or the other, since I'm an alternate.
Okay. Luke Howard. Luke, you have something to say? We don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got a couple different devices going. I needed the wrong one. I wasn't sure if I voted right, so I put my hand up to say I am here to stay till noon.
Okay, I counted that one. Gary.
Yeah, hi. I had to step away for a while, so I didn't realize what we were voting on. I'm taking that we are voting on extending the meeting.
That was correct.
Okay. I'd be able to just extending it till noon.
Yep, extending it until noon. It seems like that passed, so we're extending the tag meeting until noon, based on what I counted. Well, let's see if we can get it done by noon.
Jill, are we sure you still have a quorum if it goes after 11 here?
If we're just losing the people who had said no, that they weren't available, we should still squeak by with a quorum, I think.
Okay, Poppy.
Yeah, I realized we already voted, but I was just wondering if you could repeat the goals of extending it an hour. Are we thinking that we're actually going to get through the whole rest of the code in an hour, or what are we specifically trying to do?
We're trying to get, ideally we get through the code today. If we're not, we have to schedule another meeting, and that's unlikely to happen before the MVE and SBCC. So that would mean that we would be extremely unlikely to have this out to the public in the next month. It would probably be a month and a half before this goes to the public, which just extends, which means this tag is meeting in August and July, which is not what anybody wants.
Okay, so the plan is to see if how far we can get in this hour and then decide from there.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise we have to schedule another meeting next week or move on from that. So let's see if we can get through in the next hour.
Okay, so there's a new section added specific for atriums.
That corresponds with our current rule. We can leave it.
Okay, some clarifications on additional lighting controls.
Okay.
Additional item for medical and dental. Removing the sentence specific to decorative lighting in exterior lighting.
CJ,
So I'm just looking at the ICC. It appears that they don't have it, but this was something that we must have added into the Washington State Code before. So I don't know why we would delete it if it was in ours.
No, this was something that IECC deleted.
Okay, I don't see the red mark, so they specifically got rid of this?
Yes.
So you, Krista, you were able to get a red line? Because I tried to get a red line and couldn't. They said it wasn't available till the end of March.
I don't like the red lines because they're useless.
Oh.
That's just my personal opinion. I actually go through the complete revision history and change by change of all of the changes that were approved, and then go back again through the published language, because there are times where you have conflicting proposals that were adopted.
Okay, that's
so
good
this
to
was
know,
very
'cause it's-
specific to one of the code change proposals.
For sake of time, I'd say we should just move on, and if we need to do a code change proposal, we'll suggest it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, CJ.
Just a slight tweak to the title. A new section or a new item added on to setback lighting for parking areas.
Seems like that increases stringency and meets the intent of this session today.
And a whole new section on parking garage lighting controls.
Mike Kennedy. Mike, I don't hear you. Okay, I don't hear you. You got your hand raised. David, ready.
Hello. Well,
okay, Mike,
go ahead, Mike.
We already, I'm okay with it being here, but we have the lighting power in interior lighting, as because 90.1 does. And I've actually always thought it should be in its own section all by itself as exterior non-tradable lighting myself, but we do have the lighting power in interior lighting, and we have controls for parking garage under interior lighting. So I'm kind of okay with it here, but I think we need to remove our other sections 405.214 and 405.252, item 7, if we keep it here. I also thought the exceptions likely result in a reduced amount of daylight control in garages. But I didn't do any math on that to verify that, but it seemed like they were less stringent.
Okay, thoughts on that?
I agree with Mike that the 3 exceptions should probably be stricken because they're less stringent than what we have now. They're not unreasonable.
Okay, if they're less stringent, then we can't entertain them. So that seems like a good suggestion. Mike Bernick, before he left, said C405.2.8 and C405.2.9 should switch places, but we don't have a C405.2.9. So,
Mike, can you give me the two sections again that
Well,
you
the
were
ones I've written down, 405.214 and 405.252, item 7.
David Reddy has a comment.
I agree with Mike's comment, but I think I don't know who previously said that, but if you scroll up a little bit, Krista, I think there's a numbering issue here that somebody was trying to allude to.
Oh, so it's the area
Yeah.
controls.
Okay, that was the issue. 9 before 8. So this is. Here we are. Okay.
And a new section for lighting for plant growth and maintenance.
This is good.
All right. Let's move on.
Some minor tweaks on the task lighting. And a new line item for disinfection lighting.
CJ.
No problems with the tweaks to task and display. Controls is listed elsewhere. For antimicrobial lighting, I don't endorse adding this as to the list in terms of it not being connected to total lighting power for several reasons. One, the devices that are being specified for this purpose technically may not even be lights. So I feel like it might be considered to be equipment instead of a light fixture. And there are a lot of products out on the market right now that are proposed to be serving this purpose that are placebos. So the notion that we're going to give you an exemption for adding extra power in your space to be cleaning your space, I just am worried that we don't have any way to prove that it's real disinfecting light, a product, and not something that's just sucking up more energy.
So CJ, I put something like this in the new Seattle code at your request, calling it germicidal lighting, with this idea that, especially since it's this big topic right now, is this a
Did you put this in the Seattle code at my request before COVID?
No, I think that this was part of the whole COVID thing, was that we just wanted to make sure that if people put those additional fixtures in, that it wasn't counting against their general lighting power allowance.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot more out there about it right now, and I'm worried that we may have a little bit of a loophole here. So if this is something that needs a code change proposal, I don't care if it's here. Well, actually, that's not true. I want to save energy just like everybody else does. But I also don't want to be the person specifying germicidal products on a project, and I don't want to be responsible for them relative to adding them into the lighting power density or not. So I guess maybe leaving it in is fine. I'm wondering if anybody else sees this as a potential loophole.
Mike Feller.
Just on the topic of antimicrobial lighting, I've never heard the term, but I have heard of the term germicidal lamp. So I'm just wondering if germicidal is a better word. It still leaves it in, if that's a change, or if that is just leave it and make it a code proposal change.
Lisa.
Hi, yeah, so ASHRAE right now is the last few months, of course, they've been they have their epidemic task force that's been putting together industry recommendations with regards to COVID. And so it seems that, I don't know the timing of this change here. It would be probably a good idea to try to coordinate or at least align with the terminology that they are recommending, so that we don't end up with any kind of language in our energy code that then doesn't align with what is being proposed as new industry standards. So maybe, if somebody wants to take a look at that, I don't know if I've got time to add that one to my pile, but I think that'd be worthwhile taking a look at what the epidemic task force has put out about this technology.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, keep it. Should it stay or should it go? I think since it's in the IECC 2021, we can keep it in here and entertain code proposals to modify it or change it or align the terminology. That seems like a reasonable path forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just have it include that would be on kind of the to-do list to align it, because it is mentioned in the epidemic task force list of technology recommendations. So we would be in line with what they're proposing. I'm just not sure about the terminology.
Okay, sounds good.
I will say, just searching on the web, that I kind of agree with CJ's concerns. There look like there are a lot of products that are actually almost marketed as dual purpose, sanitizing lights and general lights.
I don't think it's a problem, because this says sole purpose of disinfection.
Yep. Go ahead, CJ.
Okay.
I just think it's an energy ad.
Okay, well, let's leave it in for now and accept the modification later proposal.
Okay, there was a rewrite to the interior lighting power allowance section that supposedly helps clarify how this applies to core and shell buildings. And just clarify how to use the various tables.
Hi, Kennedy.
In the building area method, I think as it's currently written, and certainly as it's currently implied, each building area has to comply on its own. You don't get to average between building areas. So if you, and this method changes that to allow the averaging of the whole building, which I take as being maybe slightly less stringent, but at the same time, I think it's more consistent with space by space, but it probably is less stringent.
Any other thoughts on that subject?
Yes. The tables are pretty incomplete, regarding space by space and building by building. When you actually sit down and apply this under the current code, to actually get it accurate, you end up using both methods in kind of a modified spreadsheet. So I don't know if this is going better or worse, but if it puts the handcuffs on, I mean, any designer, it gets frustrating, Shell, because we don't have enough categories for what goes on in the buildings. So you're using a combination. For example, I had to do a lab this year that does all this testing of medical stuff and other stuff. And, there's no categories for a laboratory. So you have to get creative.
Yeah. Okay, so this would move us slightly backwards. I mean, we have lighting power densities that are better than the IECC, but this would move us slightly backwards potentially. I'm inclined to say that it's acceptable because we'll probably end up with better lighting power densities than we have now in the 2021 code. And this allows flexibility for the designer, which might make it a little bit easier. What are thoughts on that? Okay, Dwayne.
We've noticed that basically everyone uses space by space, and I suspect that's because the building area method has been harder to comply with over time. And so what I had heard as this was going forward was that this makes them a little more equivalent.
So it might be preferable from the design perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, is your hand still up?
Not till we get to space by space, sorry.
Okay, we're on space by space.
I had a concern there. The old language basically said each space each different use needed to be, it shall be broken into smaller subspaces. This one makes it optional. You can divide it if it's good for your lighting calc. If you get more budget out of it, you can divide the space. And there's just, if you have a single room that has two different functions, space by space would require you to call that two different space types, as it's done in the IEC, as it's done in 90.1, and currently the Washington Code. This change allows you, well, you can do it that way or not. So I kind of object to this language that makes that optional.
Because it moves it backwards, the code backwards in terms of stringency?
Yeah, I mean, it lets people choose the more. They don't have to do it. They only have to do it. They only can do it. So they can do it when it's favorable and not do it when it's disfavorable.
Hey, Mike, this is Patrick. Have you ever done lighting power allowances on lots of buildings and worked with it? I mean, before you want,
I have. Yes, I have.
Before you put the handcuffs on, I would really suggest take a set of drawings and sit down and go through this process, because
I've done about 400 of them, Patrick.
Yeah, I've done about that many too, and because it gets really challenging, and I think it's a part of the code where our allowances are low enough that we don't need to add any more challenge to it. I mean,
we're not adding challenge. This is what's in the code now. This is something that's changing to an IECC specific new language.
This is just the integrated draft. So, CJ.
I'd like to propose that we keep the space by space method descriptions as the integrated draft had suggested. Mike, I hear you. I think this is worthy of a code change proposal though, because I think that the values that we're looking at and the way that it's calculated using space by space, I think you might need to take this broken up smaller subspaces into consideration when you're doing it.
CJ, just so I'm clear on what you're saying as shown on the screen right now? Or...
Yes, well, without Mike's edits. Sorry, Mike, I don't mean to,
okay.
Yeah.
put you down. I just think that,
Well,
I think what you're proposing should be a code change proposal.
But it's in there specifically as it was a specific code change proposal in the last code cycle. I made it to put this in there as, you know, basically requiring spaces to say, hey, if you have different functions, those are different spaces. It's not preventing you from dividing it into multiple sections. It's actually requiring you. This is allowing you, well, you can if you want, you don't have to. So if you call the space this one thing.
If it was a specific Washington State amendment that was accepted and the IECC is less stringent via this language, then we, for the integrated draft, probably should use the more stringent language. That's, I mean, that's kind of what I understand our charge to be.
Sorry, I guess I don't get it. Like, so we take the energy exclusion of the antimicrobial, which is definitely adding energy, and we don't take this one. I'm just having a hard time understanding the where we draw the line on that. Honestly, Mike, if this is something the Washington State Code had already agreed upon based on the last code cycle, I guess I'm just taking your word for it. I've been banging my head against having to do energy calcs lately, so I'm particularly sensitive to it. Sorry.
But we'll discuss this in about 2.5 months again, I'm sure. Okay, so we will require the breaking up into smaller subspaces because that was the previously accepted 2018 Washington State Energy Code language. And then we will entertain code proposals to allow more flexibility.
And the numbers in the brackets are the IACC values and compared to our current existing values.
Well, they all seem to be higher. And in the last cycle, we have literally, as a group, hours into this. And voting, I would suggest we keep what we have and ignore the new ones.
And then just a comment that on the space by safe space, IECC has the atrium lighting in only 2 categories rather than the 3 that we have currently.
I would also bet that the work that CJ did, that she really did a good job. And when we put all this together in the last code cycle, that she's got more talent than maybe anybody on the IECC.
Where's the heart emoji?
David, do you have a question, comment?
Comment, I guess. One that pops out is in the library reading area allowance. There's a really dramatic difference. I didn't know if there was a typo there from the previous code.
Wow. Good eye, David.
Well, yeah, it was a mistake in that you can have a library reading area with a lighting level that's lower than corridors. So it was a mistake in the last code.
Okay, sounds like a code change proposal.
No, no.
to-
What's showing there is, as Krista's correction in red is correct.
So just to be clear, the thing in red is the IECC and the.
Oh,
thing
I've got
in
it
black is-
backwards. Yeah, it's supposed to be.
So when, and just from us, required what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to keep the most stringent right now, and then we can entertain code proposals.
Well,
to
except if
allow-
except if it's an obvious mistake.
Is it a mistake?
0.31 is an obvious mistake.
Yeah, it seems way too low.
We should research this. 90.1, which is what these models were supposedly modeled on, has the numbers in red for this one.
.96,
Yeah,
which seems,
9.6 and 1.1.
if you've done as many of these as I have, Mike, that number looks right, the 9.6.
And Mike, this would ended up being your original or your proposal or your public testimony that the council adopted the last time. So,
Right, so it's my fault.
well, no, it's very likely my fault. But so I'm saying if you're saying that it should have been, it probably should have been.
Well, we could research it, Krista, and see
Yeah.
where that fell down. We don't know when ASHRAE changed it.
So do we have the purview today to change it to 0.96 from 0.31 for the integrated draft?
I would guess that we have the purview to fix obvious errors.
Okay, so why don't we change in this table only the 0.31 to a 0.96? And
The only thing is that the state energy code values are consistently lower than the IECC numbers. So
I think without getting into trying to figure out an LPD, you have to adopt one of the,
Just
one or
start
the
there.
other. And so we start at 0.96, and I'm sure somebody will come in with a great code proposal.
At this point, actually, the other reds have been, I've been checking 90.1 as we've been going through this, and these are the only two reds where the IECC has been deviating from 90.1, but not in these cases.
CJ.
So.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at the record, and 0.96 looks accurate for what we actually ended up with. So I think it is a typo.
Yeah, I can go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure it's a mistake.
Just in time for an errata.
Clarification on the additional interior lighting power that the controls need to comply with the additional lighting controls section. Although I think that should be 6.
CJ and Poppy. CJ first.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the footnotes at the bottom of the table. If we could go back to that. So there are a bunch of footnotes that that Washington State doesn't have, that the table here does have. I guess I just wanted to ask the question about consistency in these footnotes. And again, this can absolutely be a code change proposal, but I was just wanting to find out from this committee if they believe that we should be following along with the footnotes that the integrated draft has. Like specifically, there are a bunch of like class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 facilities that were eliminated, items D, E, and F, but the integrated, the IECC has. So I guess, again, maybe I'm answering my own question. It should be a code change proposal to try to look at what these different line items are. But I just wanted to make sure we were all aware that there are differences here.
Okay, great. Poppy.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little slow on the draw. I just had a quick question on the last subject. It's just a confirmation. When we correct what we're considering obvious errors for purposes of the integrated draft for the 2021 code, should we assume that that change is also going to be made in the 2018 code?
Reserved, yes.
Okay.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Mike Kennedy. Okay, Poppy, lower your hand, and unless you have another question, and we will I think you were gonna, Krista, you were gonna change that to 2.6 if.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be 2.6, but.
Okay. And
So some changes to the exterior lighting power allowance scoping table or scoping section. It just breaks it up into bullet points on how to use it. And that change is pretty much just editorial. Okay, some changes to regenerative drives, changing it to energy recovery, which eliminates most of the language. And I've got a question into ICC of whether that second sentence is actually supposed to be there.
Yeah, I didn't understand what the last sentence that has been added there means.
I guess what it means is it has for a couple more power than the system that recovers power consumes. That's how I read it. It's a bit ham-fisted.
So yeah, it was originally disapproved, and then the change was made via public comment, but that sentence wasn't in the public comment that the change was based on, so it's just I don't know.
Mike Kennedy.
Sorry, I was muted. It seems like it kind of leaves the code official a little bit out on an island. I mean, they're going to get some kind of odd calculator detailed calculation from an engineer. Anyway, I'm not sure I'm in favor of the language, but I understand that you don't want it in this case, but.
So for this one, is it going to need a code change proposal to go back to the way that we had it before? I kind of like the language we had before, but of course that was language that I wrote.
I mean, we could just use that language and not use the IECC language if we feel it's preferable to use our current language.
Dwayne, do you know if there's any, I mean, you know, is there any metric that would kind of take care of this? In other words, how would you judge an escalator? Because I guess you basically have to know how much it operates to understand, and you also have to know what the standby power is of the device that recovers it. So that seems to me what makes it a little strange, but
I think whatever that last sentence is supposed to mean, it doesn't mean anything to me, and it doesn't sound like it means anything to anybody on the call.
well, I mean, if you think about it, you could think of like the heat recovery. If you had a heat recovery unit that had a heat exchanger that had 0% efficiency, all it do is run the fan but not recovering the energy, and that's what they're trying to guard against, except with escalators in this case. So there needs to be some kind of minimal efficiency with escalator systems that recover energy.
I see. Okay, well, with that,
I mean, to me, it's just probably unenforceable, but at some point in the future, there might actually be a way to measure that, or maybe there is. I don't specify escalators, so.
I have specified escalators, and but not for the last decade. So, okay, let's leave this.
Okay, we'll leave it.
So ICC put in a new section on receptacle control. And so I've left in both our controlled receptacle language and IECC's, and so should be one or the other. Yeah, sorry.
This is Lois. I'll go out on a limb here, but I think the language that went into ICC was probably borrowed from Washington State. And then they always like to change things, and then it comes back not quite as good as where it started. But that's just my high level view of it. And I bet the scope got decreased. It went to ICC, so it probably was broader in the or it covered more in the Washington, and it's probably decreased into the ICC would be my guess as well.
Mike Kennedy?
Yeah, I decided that the new language was preferable to the Washington language. It requires the receptacles to be closer and seemed good. I was wary of item 2.3 though, and maybe it's probably my lack of understanding of what kind of system, another control system that was anticipated there. But it seems like potentially that's not kind of, anyway, I wondered about deleting 2.3 and keeping all the rest of it. But
yeah, so it's one of three options you could do, and 2.2 and 2.3 seem somewhat similar. But 2.2 would appear to be an occupant sensor that directly controls a receptacle, whereas 2.3 would be maybe a building, a BMS system turning off the receptacle. I don't know. I don't see how different What's the difference between the two?
There's no air. Oh,
I was gonna say, Mike, is it possible that occupancy sensor for the general area, that would give a signal as opposed to local
yeah,
control?
or just the building schedule. I mean, I guess my concern is here, it's not limited. The first 2.1 is limited to 5,000 square feet, and 2.2 is an occupancy sensor, presumably, you know, local. And 2.3 is kind of like, well, it could be the whole building. I mean, what is that the area is unoccupied?
Mike McGivern.
Yeah, I've seen this a number of times where there's an occupancy sensor that controls the lights and the receptacles for a given office or area where it's required. So I would agree that 2.2 would be an occupancy sensor, local control, and 2.3 would be something similar to a DDC system that would control based on area with possibly with the lights.
So I guess the question before us today is 2.3 move us backwards? Mike Fowler.
Yes, what I'm hearing is that, if I understood Mike Kennedy correctly, the preference is to adopt the IECC language, and from that point, a code proposal change could modify 2.2 or 2.3 or whatever we want from that point. But the motion, I guess, is to adopt the IECC language and not Washington State.
I agree. It's a good summary. And I agree with that. I think 2.3, I don't know that 2.3 necessarily moves us backwards. So we could continue with it in the integrated draft and then entertain code proposals to modify it if anyone is so moved. Does that seem generally agreeable? Okay. David Reddy says yes. Okay, Mike, go ahead. Mike Kennedy.
Oh, no, I would delete 2.3.
Okay.
But I'm not a tag member, so.
David, ready.
I guess I read it as just leaving it open to new controls. You know, it could be a phone app, or it could be some other control system that I think they don't want us to have full innovation on. So I think it doesn't seem to leave it open to gaming too much. Maybe changing the area to the space as the previous exception indicates.
Or the local area.
Yeah. Just to alleviate that concern that you suggested of like it being the whole building being the criteria, something like that.
Yep. Mike McGivern.
Yeah, I think that C405.10 number 2, item 2 is going backwards for modular furniture, because currently we require 50% of the receptacles in modular furniture to be controlled.
Yep, 50%. And right now, it says 50% here. Where does it say less than 50%?
It's the branch circuit is 25.
Okay. So we could remove that. Or put 50%. Dave, ready?
Oh, sorry. I need to put my hand down.
Okay. Okay, does that seem like a reasonable starting point? Okay, all right, let's move on. C406. Nothing is going to change here, right? Whew.
I did, I think, include their C406. They went to just a percentage improvement on everything for the various occupancy types.
Lisa.
Yeah, I brought this up last week when we had the conversation about removing 5C. And if you look at the table here, this is one area where there's definitely some things to look at here with regards to that decision. And so I'm not sure how to go about that based on what we decided last week, but this does have an impact here if we did pull 5C out of this code.
Mike Kennedy.
Yeah, I went through a couple of the credits comparing the two 406s, and I found that for the same 10% lighting reduction, you get a much larger credit in the IECC relative to the number of credits required than the Washington. It was, basically it was like 75% of the credit that you needed in the IECC, and yet it was only 50% in the Washington. And education and office were both that way. So I really felt like the new credits as cooked with the credit requirement were quite a bit diminished efficiency requirements.
Oh.
So I didn't think we should adopt this. At the same time, I mean, I love what they did with the heating and cooling. I thought that was a great solution to some equipment only being able to meet one or the other.
I guess
so
what,
I like.
What's the
I
best
believe
way
there will be a change. I'm pretty sure NIA is doing a major proposal for C406.
Yeah, I feel like that will be a large area of influence. I guess one question is, do we pick one or the other, the IECC or the Washington State Energy Code 2018, and go with that? Or do we need to take a more nuanced approach and thread them together in an intelligent way? I would love to hear on that before we go into specific.
So this is Louis, Nia. I think, and maybe Mike, you can chime in here. I would like to understand what the difference is between the two tables, and certainly I can do some research to find out what those are. I know exactly the person to talk to that did both of them. So it seemed, Mike, do you think the idea of threading these together is a good idea, or is it one or the other? What's your, just at a high level, what do you think?
I think we just pick one because I don't think there's issues with both of them. We could spend a long time fixing this, and I think what we'll want is a proposal. I mean, a proposal that makes the changes we want all in one place.
Yeah, I'm guessing very few words of this will not be changed by code proposals. So.
Right. And I guess I was thinking that we stick with the Washington. I feel like we're picking the more stringent of the two currently concocted.
Okay.
But I don't really care. That was just a comment. I do have lots of comments on the individual credits in the IECC language.
So what's the main effect on the table, Mike? What's the, it sounds like they split out some of the credits into more definitive categories. And then it sounds like on certain things, there's a few more I mean, it's kind of handy. I ultimately, but I think the framework of the ICC is a better framework, even if the numbers have to be dialed in. That seems like almost a better approach, but maybe we dial down to the table real quick, or go down to the table.
I guess before
I
we
agree.
take this conversation further, I want to hear from other people just on the overall philosophy of one versus the other versus a thread. So, Poppy, you've had your hand up for a bit.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning toward not threading it and going with Mike's suggestion that we start with the Washington version. I have maybe like 10 questions / comments on individual aspects of the new IECC version. And so there's just a lot of things that are different that we'd have to sort through, many of which seem like they're beyond the scope of what we're supposed to be doing and would be fairly time consuming. And maybe that's the type of thing that gets worked out, not just in future TAG meetings, but within the context of some of the major proposals. And I also have, in addition to many of the individual questions, there's just so many unknowns relating to the way that they calculated the credits. It looks like they're based on cost, and we haven't typically done that. Even in other things coming from ASHRAE that were based on cost, we turn that into carbon. So yep. At face value, I just can't even see how I would even begin to compare those credits without having a much better understanding of the methodology behind it. Maybe it's great, and I agree that there are some good things about it, but my last thing is there any methodological documents or any kind of backup that we can review that anybody
how the table was generated? Let's just hear from Lisa and David on philosophy of how we approach this before we get into the details.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to kind of step back and think about this procedurally. And second, what Poppy's saying is that I don't think we have, as TAG members, I don't think we have enough information to make an informed decision about whether this is, a step forward or a step back. And I think that it is definitely on a, per credit. You have to evaluate it per credit, I think, to really figure it all out. And so, based on that, procedurally, what's the rule about that? Is the rule to maintain the Washington state language until that is made available for the TAG to do the necessary research? How does that work?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't know that. Do we? How do we approach this? I'm not sure. David had his hand up next.
Well, I'll one more comment. I would say that if presented as a vote to say which one do we pick, I don't know if I would feel comfortable picking one way or the other. There's just not enough information there to make an informed decision.
Yep. Okay. David?
I agree with the idea of not adopting it for now and letting this handle with a code change proposal. But I think Lisa raised the question of, if we don't adopt this, is that the nail in the coffin for the climate zone 5C question that I think we said we were going to revisit?
No matter what we decide to do with the integrated draft, the proposals can do it anything else. So I guess, I don't know.
I have a comment.
Gavin has his hand raised. So we'll go with Gavin.
I just wanted to chime in and say that I'm feeling uncomfortable about adopting either, similarly to Lisa. It seems like we need information about the rationale behind these changes, and rushing through it in 13 minutes seems, even to keep the existing code, seems like we're not doing justice to the work that was done before us.
This is Lois. I just wanted to mention something real quickly. Something Poppy said occurred to me, and the analysis that was done in Washington State was based on carbon. And I know when it went to the ICC, they would not have based it on carbon. They would have based it on energy costs, kind of the process that Asher would use. So kind of based on that, I think the most logical thing would probably be to leave the Washington State. So although I like the idea of weaving them together, but I think the weaving them together is the code proposal change. But I think just based on the carbon metric, the analysis that was done for the Washington State one was done on carbon, and the one for the ICC definitely was not done on carbon. So I think just based on that, that sort of means that the Washington State, for the one that's the original Washington State, is based upon the carbon numbers and everything that we use there. So just based on that, I think Poppy's on the right track there.
Well, I guess my feeling is if we maintain the Washington State 2018 language, we are inherently not moving backwards because we're maintaining it, right? So that's not decreasing it. But the hard question would be, is the 2021 IECC somehow more stringent than the 2018 Washington State Energy Code? So based on my understanding, what we're supposed to do, if we adopted the Washington State Energy Code 2018 version in the integrated draft, we are inherently not moving backwards because it's the same thing as we already had. We do have 11 minutes left in our session, and
One comment on this, Shell.
I would like to talk about procedure before we.
I've raised my
whether we
hand.
extend the meeting or not. I think that's what I'd like to spend a couple minutes on, because we're obviously not going to get through it in the next 6 minutes or 10 minutes. So I'll call on you, Patrick, first when we come back to this. So do we want to extend the meeting for another hour and think that we might get through this, or do we want to schedule another tag meeting before the MVE committee, which I think would be probably Monday, which I don't know that we could even do because we haven't put out a meeting invite for it, or we want to schedule it for after the Building Code Council meeting on next Friday, meaning that this wouldn't go out to the public until April or May. So those are kind of the three options. And I'd love to see your votes on which one we do. So the first one is extend the tag meeting for another hour in the wild hopes that somehow we can get through it. Number two is schedule a meeting before next Thursday, which I think will be near impossible. And the third one is just say, we're going to lose a month, and the next tag meeting should be in the next few weeks, and that means the integrated draft won't go out to the public until late April or May, and so we'll be meeting as a tag in July and August instead of June and July. So those are the three options. So I want to see hands raised on the first one, extending the meeting in an hour in the wild hopes that we can get it done. I don't see anybody loving that idea. Okay. Number two, trying desperately to get a meeting scheduled before next Thursday. We have a bunch of hands on that one. And then the last option is say, we just can't get this done before next Thursday. We're going to schedule a meeting in the next few weeks to get this done and delay the integrated draft going out to the public. Okay, so I see a bunch of hands for that one as well. People who have no vacation plans in August, probably. Okay. not sure.
Can I have a,
Go
Joe,
ahead.
can I make a quick comment? Just, everybody has their hands raised, so I don't know how to raise my hand to make the comment. But just as an FYI, next week is WABO's Annual Education Institute, their big training event, and it's all week. And so, there may be TAG members that, may not be available next week because of that. So just as an FYI.
Yep, that's really good information, Lisa. Thank you. Is there any more discussion on what we do this? Right now, I'm leaning towards scheduling it after next Thursday, meaning the 2 or 3 or so weeks out. And I'd love to hear thoughts on that, pro and con. Gary.
Yeah, I think I would support that, Joe, and that would allow adequate time, or hopefully more time, to really do the analysis needed on these additional credit tables.
Okay, that seems like the path forward. So I would like to spend our last, Lisa, you still have your hand raised. I don't know if you intend to. So I'd like to spend the last few minutes figuring out what we need to do with C406, data we need between now and then, so that we can make an informed decision, to Lisa's and other points about making an informed decision. What do we need in order to do that? Obviously, I think threading them together in a meeting is going to be painful and ultimately challenging. Gary.
What about Mike?
Oh,
you were going to call him Patrick. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Patrick.
Well, I think as a group, since the 2018 code just went into play approximately 45 days ago, and we haven't even applied the new C406 to any projects, as a group, I think it would be terribly irresponsible to try and digest this new version of it without applying it to projects. I mean, there needs to be a gestation period. And in a small example, I got a couple of exotic houses on my desk right now.
So Patrick, we have 6 minutes left. What are you proposing that we do?
Sit on this.
Well, we need to release the integrated map sometime in the near future. So
sit on this at least until code proposals come in. And if one of the proposals is if someone is overzealous about this new version, put it in a proposal. Let the dust settle on the current version.
So what I hear you saying is we should keep the Washington State Energy Code 2018 version and allow code proposals to move us forward to the IECC if that's desired.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have comments on what data we need to adequately talk about C406 at our next TAG meeting?
We could try to get Reed Hart from PNNL involved, since he's been crunching numbers on the, he did this help with this original one, and he's working on a similar thing for ASHRAE right now, and really understands how all these numbers relate.
That sounds great. Can you connect Krista?
Yes.
Okay.
Joel, I was just going to say, I can probably.
Sorry, I accidentally muted you, Louis.
Okay. Sorry, I was going to say, I could probably get Mike Kennedy looped in on all the background and talk to the necessary people to find out all the questions you could possibly answer on the difference between the Washington and the and the ICC one. So if that's helpful, I'm willing to do that, but your call.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's connect with people who know something about how this was put together in the IECC so that we can make a good group effort. Mike, you have a comment?
Oh, I just wanted to speak to the 5C question. And someone said, I think it was Krista, that we were limited to 2 climate zones by statute.
I believe we are.
So I'm not sure. Yeah, so I'm not sure that's something that's up for debate at all at this point.
Yeah, I guess the question would be, do we move the requirements for 5C into another climate zone and have it apply to the projects that are in the 5C-ish climate zone. I guess that might be what we do. Gavin.
Just reiterating that our focus ought to be carbon too here. So in this information we're gathering, I'd sure like to see something about the carbon reductions of the new proposals, if we could work toward that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And actually, if anybody has any resources that they want to send to Krista and I about the background of the IECC and the energy and carbon savings associated with it, please send those on directly. And then we can try and figure out how to apprise the tag of the differences between those, or invite experts in. Mike Fowler?
I was going to propose potentially a middle ground. Hopefully we can do this as we keep and show the 2018 in the integrated draft, and also show the 2021 as a just pure reference only, so that folks can use that as the, because there will be proposals on C406, and rather than try to bash our heads against the wall and try to make it fit the square peg fit through this round hole.
We have a whole nother
Show
tag
both.
meeting to
You know,
figure
that we're
one
going to
out.
have let the proposals work it out, sort of pitch it and work it out and mash it together. So I was going to suggest keeping our current language, and then just label it as shown for reference only, the 2021 IECC. So just put that out there for thought.
It's a good idea. And yeah, Poppy.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that if we can get as much documentation as we can about the methodology in the IECC version, that would be good. It's not just about getting some guy to come in and talk about it or provide some information. We really need to look at the detailed report. I think seeing it in writing and laid out, and the calculations and all of that would be really helpful. And then one other quick thing is that, I mean, I've done a quick comparison, but we don't have really any more detailed comparison between all of the narrative parts of the IECC version versus our version. And I think it would be helpful if somebody or some subgroup did that, as opposed to every single one of us trying to like cross-reference and understand all of the differences. I think that would really be beneficial to the group.
For C406 specifically?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to participate in that, but I only have, my perspective on it.
Okay, great. Can you send that request to Krista and I? And everybody else, thank you so much for doing 4 hours on a Friday. This is great. I think we made a lot of progress, and I will see you all whenever we schedule our next tag meeting. And please send what you want for C406 information to Krista and I, and we'll try and track it down, or any connections. So thank you so much for all your time.
That was fun, John.
Well, it was fun.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.